Good morning, PreK. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. We have reached chapter 12. It's our last chapter. But it's a fairly long chapter. Lots of things are happening. So I think we'll read part of it, and then tomorrow will be our finale where we will finish. Before we stopped, Alice was attending the trial of the Knave of Hearts who stole some tarts. And all kinds of goofy things were going on. And everything that everybody said just sounded silly. And Alice knows nothing about any of this. And then at the very end of chapter 11, they call on Alice to get up and give her part of it. And she's surprised. She doesn't know anything. But we'll see what happens. This is called Alice's Evidence. "Here," cried Alice, forgetting how large she'd grown in the last few minutes. Also, she's growing because her magic had worn off. She jumped up in such a hurry that she tripped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, sending all of the jurymen on their heads into the heads of the crowds below. They were all laying sprawled all over. "Oh, I do beg your pardon," she exclaimed, and began picking them up as fast as she could. "The trial cannot proceed," said the king in a very stern voice, "until all the jurymen are back in their proper places." "All," he repeated, looking hard at Alice. Alice looked at the jury box and saw that she had put the lizard in, head downward. The poor thing was waving his tail all around, unable to move, so Alice lifted it and put it right. And after the jury had a moment to recover, they quickly started writing out a history of the accident. The lizard, too, overcome to do anything, sat with its mouth open, gazing into the roof of the court. "What do you know about this business?" the king said to Alice. "Nothing," said Alice. "Nothing whatever?" persisted the king. "Nothing whatever," said Alice. "That's very important," the king said, turning to the jury. They were just beginning to write this down on their slates when the White Rabbit interrupted. "Unimportant, Your Majesty, means, of course," he said in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. "Oh, unimportant, of course, I meant," the king said, and then went on mumbling to himself, "Important, unimportant, unimportant, important," as if he were trying to decide which word sounded best. Some of the jury wrote down important and some unimportant. Alice could see this, but it doesn't matter a bit, she thought to herself. At this moment, the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, called out, "Silence!" and read from his book. "Rule number 42, all persons more than a mile high must leave the court." Here's Alice, she's grown. Here's the king, so she looks very large to him. Everybody looked at Alice. "I'm not a mile high," said Alice. "You are," said the king. "Oh, nearly 2 miles high," added the queen. "Well, I won't go," said Alice. "Besides, it's not a regular rule. You invented it just now." "It's the oldest rule in the book," said the king. "Then it should be rule number 1, not rule number 42, said Alice. The king turned pale and he shut his notebook. "Consider your verdict," he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. "There's more evidence to come, please, Your Majesty," said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry. "This paper has just been picked up." "What's in it?" said the Queen. "I haven't opened it yet," said the White Rabbit. "But it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody." "Whom is it to?" said one of the jurymen. "To no one at all," said the White Rabbit. "In fact, there's nothing written on the outside." He unfolded the paper as he spoke, and added, "It isn't a letter after all. It's a set of verses." "Are they in the prisoner's handwriting?" asked another juryman. "No, they're not," said the White Rabbit, "and that's the hardest thing about it." "He must have copied someone else's handwriting," said the king. "Please, your majesty," said the knave, "I didn't write it, and they can't prove I did. There's no name signed at the end." "If you didn't sign it," said the king, "that only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you would have signed your name like an honest man." Everyone in the court started clapping. It was the first clever thing the king had said that day. "That proves he's guilty," said the queen. "It proves nothing," said Alice. "You don't even know what the verses are about." "Read them," said the king. The White Rabbit put on his glasses. "Where shall I begin, please, your majesty?" he asked. "Begin at the beginning," the king said solemnly, "and go on until you come to the end, and then stop." And we're going to stop there. Tomorrow we will hear the verses that are supposedly written, and then we will find out what happens to Alice. So, have a great sunny day. Have an adventure. You know, you can have an adventure right at home. I'll see you tomorrow.